All right. Well, I believe we are live here on YouTube through Google Hangouts. I am Nate Wolf, and I run the Fired for Truth YouTube channel and ministry. And I'm very excited about this video tonight, this discussion, interview, testimony, because I have a very special guest with me for this broadcast. It is a interview and testimony for truth, and it is associated with my Testify for Truth series. So I'm very excited today to welcome Nathaniel from the NCP YouTube channel, and he is going to share with us a little bit more about that channel in the course of our interview. But first of all, welcome Nathaniel to the show.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate it. It means a lot. I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. And, I know that you've had your channel for a while, but you recently found your niche, found your ministry, your passion, and decided, okay, this is going to be the focus of my channel. So you started this channel, and it was about 7 to 10 days ago when you posted a comment on one of my videos. Tell me a little bit about that, how you knew about me, and how you decided to reach out to me and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm eternally grateful. But the thought behind, commenting on your video, definitely promotion. How
Sure.
difficult it is for young channels to get themselves out there. And I had posted that comment on several other videos. Just giving a brief description of what it is that I've been doing. But I did hear about you, like you said, about 9 months ago, when that happened to you, and it popped up on a notification from Celebrate Truth. He actually posted, I think, a mirror of your testimony or something, and I was just shocked. I was like, wow, I can't
Yeah.
believe that someone was actually fired for this. And then I listened in a little bit on your story and what you went through attending the conference, and I was just blown away. So
Nice.
when you came to my channel that morning and I got the subscription, my mind blew. I was like, wow.
Nice. So you heard originally when I got fired. That was back in September, and it was September 14th was the day I got fired. It was a Friday, and it was just a few days later I was interviewed. The first interview I did was with Chad Taylor, who wrote the book Where Are We? Earth According to the Bible. Close friend. He was a speaker at the conference, and so I don't know, maybe it's a dubious distinction, but he has the distinction of being the first one to interview me. And then just a couple of days later, I was interviewed by Robbie Davidson on his channel, Celebrate Truth. So you probably were subscribed to Robbie's channel to Celebrate Truth and got that notification. And so you either watched it live or watched it after. But yeah, so that was a really both interviews were very, very important. But obviously, Robbie's channel is so huge. My stuff started going viral, and it was crazy because I was being interviewed by Robbie, and it's on silent, but I'm getting all these notifications from social media just every few seconds. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? He's like, yeah, man, your stuff's going viral right now. So I was blown away because I never expected that. But I'm really glad that you had the chance to hear about, my situation from the beginning, and that you'd been following my story. And I'm thankful that you posted. I'll be honest with you, Nathaniel, not everybody who just posts the link, do I typically approve the comments. It kind of depends on what it is, but I was intrigued, and I was like, I'm gonna check this out. And when I went to your channel, I was like, dude, this is unique. I mean, people have spoken about, how do I talk to my pastor, or I talked to my pastor about biblical cosmology, but, they weren't really interested, or they weren't really, welcoming, or I got kicked out, or, whatever. But to my knowledge, you're the only person that is doing a project such as this. And so when I looked and I saw, I think at the time you had maybe 5 videos up, and I was impressed with your approach, just your maturity, your respectfulness, and just the approach that you took was really interesting. So tell us. I want to talk more about the channel, but first, let's do this. Tell us anything about yourself, just in general, that you would like folks to know, or that you're willing to share. Because I know a lot of folks are like, "Who's this mystery guy?" But only what you're comfortable with sharing about yourself in general.
Sure. Well, I'm 23 years old. I'm born and raised South Carolina. I've been here. Average guy, and I started looking into these topics when I was 19. I grew up, I guess, teeter-tottering uh, off of atheism and agnosticism, and you know, from experience, the reason that I couldn't, I guess, justify the creator or even the idea of God was because of my my strong belief, in science or scientism,
Mhm.
however you want to put that. And I was always, I remember 10, 11 years old, going to bed like, man, I want to believe, obviously, but I can't do it because of what we've been taught. So
So you were basically agnostic or atheistic in some points till up through about age 19 then.
no, actually, I came to follow Christ when I was 21. So this is about
Oh,
two and a half.
21. Okay.
That's right. So it's fairly recent.
Okay.
It was it was an extraordinary path. I never would have thought that I would be here talking to you, but I never, coming from my background, thought that I would be reading scripture and following Christ. So amazing journey.
Yeah. So that's great. So let's do this. Let's start with that journey of faith, and then share whatever you would like, whatever's important about that. I know when we talked on the phone for about an hour last week, I was just like, wow, this young guy, I mean, very mature for his age, very committed, it seems, to the faith, and very committed to the subject of biblical creation, and very knowledgeable too. I mean, I was going to peg you at about 38 years old. And so when you told me you were 23, I was like blown away. I'm like, no way, man. Is this guy trolling me? But so tell us whatever you would like to about your faith journey. And then you can transition into how the whole biblical cosmology thing happened. Because you shared some cool stuff with me, and even about how you were watching the cosmos and all this other good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up watching, Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, and I grew up watching PBS Kids, couple channels, so they had like the little Nova shows on. I loved all of that. I mean, like everybody, really, about 5, 6 years ago, everybody was into that stuff. You got downloaded space documentaries, and that was it. And I had just actually started watching Neil deGrasse Tyson's show, like the remake of the Cosmos, when he's talking
Yes.
about stardust and how the universe is within us. And so I was into it, and then suddenly, I was watching this special on Comedy Central, flipping back and forth between that and the debates during the time with Hillary and Trump and all that. And then there's a show. I'm sure everybody's seen the clip when Neil deGrasse Tyson drops the mic on
Oh
stage.
yeah, yeah.
I actually saw that when I guess it was live or whatever on Comedy Central. And at the time, I was completely on board with what Neil deGrasse was saying. I was like, yeah, like, tell these idiots, man, you dropped the mic. This is gravity.
So
Uh,
you were a Christian when you were watching this show, right?
no,
Okay,
no,
you
absolutely
weren't
not.
yet. Okay, so that was just before you became a believer then.
That's right. It was several years actually
Okay.
before really my journey to faith. It started, looking at several videos, some debates from Rob Skiba, some of his first debates, I believe. But really, what kind of smacked me in the face, ironically, was a video by Math Powerland. It was he was in this really cool black blazer, and he had like gold paint splattered across his chest, and he was like, yo, your images of Earth are paintings. He was like, they're CGI. And that really was kind of like a rude awakening for me because, I grew up with those pictures. I didn't think that they were,
Yes. Yeah.
artist renditions or whatever, but that led me. And then a couple years, maybe a year or so, um, I was watching this video and somebody mentioned something about scripture touching on this concept of enclosed cosmology. And I'm like, wow. So I got up, remember springing up. I was living with my grandparents, and I grabbed her old Bible. It was an old Bible,
Yeah.
wrinkly pages and everything, man. But opening up, it's right there. When you open Genesis 1, it says firmament. And then when you do your research on firmament and the ancient translations and things like that, it speaks to a solid vault, which is interesting.
So that was kind of like, now which came first, the biblical cosmology or the faith? I just want to make sure I have that correct.
It was actually biblical cosmology.
Because that sounded like what you were describing was somebody had mentioned that this was in the Bible, and so you went to research that, and you found out Genesis 1. You found out this this word, the firmament, and then you did some research on that. Oh, so pick up after that.
Right. Yeah. And really, I guess the idea behind that is not necessarily that, the firmament or this flat earth concept led me to faith. It actually, it shed light on the reality of it, because again, the reason that I couldn't justify Jesus or the Bible or God was due to my worldview and the one that was presented to all of us. And you hear all the time, hey, there's really no room for the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ within that, I guess, Copernican heliocentric model of the universe. And you got people all over the place that say, hey, no, you totally can. However, the reason I was just that. And
that makes a lot of sense, because as you said, like, if you look at what they teach, that I guess it really supports a lot of people who are atheistic or agnostic to say, no, that's not compatible. I mean, the God of the Bible is not compatible with what we know, about science and what we know is true. And so, now really it's more so the Christians, right? As you said, that try to say, well, no, the two are compatible. The Big Bang is that God spoke and bang, there it was. I mean, they even throw some humor in there and whatever else. And so, yeah, you've really described that well, is that a lot of believers will try to, mesh the two. They'll try to harmonize the two. But as you mentioned, when you really go into the biblical account of creation, and I'm glad you started with Genesis 1, because that's the foundation. I mean, as you know, there are many, many, many scriptures that relate to creation and biblical cosmology all over the scriptures and all throughout the Old Testament. But anything that is discussed later in God's word is really just the outflowing or additional details about what he has already shared just in Genesis 1. So, as you know, so yeah, continue on.
But yeah, I guess that was pretty much my journey to that. And again, after that realization of biblical cosmology, I wasn't like, oh, I'm a believer now, right? It's definitely a process, and it's something that I struggled with for a period of time. However, I definitely felt the fear of God one day. Like I said, I was around 21 years old, and it was one of those feelings that it's undescribable for someone that gets saved by the grace of God and only by the grace of God. Like, looking at my hands, it's like, I'm glad to finally meet you, speaking with, the Father. And it's been a completely different way of life and thought process for me since then. And understanding scripture, he definitely, he'll open your eyes and your heart. And I'm grateful, and I'm glad. But
so how long was it, Nathaniel, between when you made that connection, when you understood that somebody shared, hey, the Bible talks about this subject, you looked into Genesis 1, you considered this idea of the firmament. How long was it between that revelation and when you
it's about a year.
Consider yourself a believer? A year. Okay.
It's about a year, because I had a YouTube channel before NCP, where like I said, I did a bunch of gaming. And then when I was introduced to this concept, I was touching on it. you know, the idea of expanding landmass. And I was speaking about that. And then, you know, I definitely wanted to create a video talking about the Bible and, hey, does it talk about, you know, what I've been talking about? But yeah, it was about a year before I was led to Christ.
Wow.
It's
So
remarkable.
that was a journey as well. And so when you now did you created the NCP a little while ago, but it was more recently when you kind of settled in on more specifically what you knew you wanted to do, correct?
That's right. I created a channel outside of my previous channel. Took a while to figure out, hey, well, I know I want to do something related to this, but the thought behind, hey, I'm gonna call these pastors was just experience with, hey, like you said earlier, how do I approach pastors, and maybe I can find something different that can maybe influence others on an approach that isn't, I guess, necessarily dogmatic. Like, hey, pastor, check this out. You got to understand this is what it says. So I thought
Yeah,
that something, I guess, methodical and respectful would be the best approach.
sure. Well,
So
I really like your approach. I appreciate it. I think that your approach does two things. Well, it does more than two, but these are the two things that popped into my mind immediately. Uh, Number one, your approach um, is, of course, respectful. But number one, your approach allows the person that you're talking to, whether they're a Baptist minister or a rabbi or a Catholic priest, and you're asking them about the firmament in Genesis 1, your approach allows them to freely share what they honestly believe and what they teach. And number two, your approach, I think, is also teaching the people who watch these videos because they, most of us, they would say, oh, well, why isn't he sticking it to these guys? Well, you're really allowing the person to share honestly, this is what I believe, this is what I believe the Bible teaches, and with that, you're also showing that with all these different religious leaders, okay, there's going to be some consensus of opinion, obviously, and then there's going to be some guys way over here, and there's going to be some guys
right,
over the other side. But I think your approach is educational because you allow the ministers to share what they actually believe. And when they share that, I know like a lot of people are watching and they're going, oh, yeah, they understand now. That's just like my pastor. He told me ABC, or he told me that, yeah, the Hebrews had this cosmology and whatnot, but they just didn't understand, and Moses didn't know what he was writing. He was just inspired, and he was just writing down what God told him to do. So I think that's a very good approach. And so how long ago did you start kicking this into gear? Was it really about 6 or 7 weeks ago? Because I know you've got 6 videos up currently, but
that's right. Yeah. Priest on Call was the sixth episode, but no, I started making calls. Actually, episode 3, which is a fairly short episode. It's Rabbi on Call. That was the first time I reached out to anyone via voice call. And if you listen, I'm outside, and it had rained that day. So I'm just outside walking around
uh,
talking. But yeah, it was about 5 to 6 months ago now, and it was just like I said, due to, you know, just overall just fed up. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like I've
yeah.
got to do something. And the thought behind this, obviously, I thought this would be different. Um, and
Yeah, it's
man,
a very unique approach, and
mhm,
like I said, it's very educational. Now, I'm sure that, you weren't forceful, you didn't take them to task or try to correct them, but I'm sure, just their conversation as they're sharing with you, "Hey, this is what the Bible says, this is what I believe." After they get done with your conversation, at least some of these guys are gonna be like they're gonna be thinking about that,
right,
and you planted seed without really having to plant seed because they're going to be thinking, okay, well, what if someone else calls me and asks me, like, I better brush up on this. And so they go
right,
back to Genesis 1, and you never know who's going to be like, wait a second, this isn't this is different,
Mhm.
the firmament is not the ground,
Right, it's not the earth. I think
and
that's the foundation
it's
of
not the
yeah.
earth. It's not talking about the earth. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with your approach, because I know as we spoke on the phone last week, you said, I'm thinking about breaking these down into seasons and
Mhm.
maybe 10 videos max or so for each season. And so if anybody goes to your YouTube channel NCP and they see your 6 videos that are up, they're going to see that there's the theme of the firmament. So how did you decide to start with that theme and that scripture?
Yeah. The firmament, I believe, is the foundation of understanding biblical cosmology. Everything else, in regards to the two great lights in the firmament, and the boundaries, he had said it speaks to that. I think all that naturally falls within the subject. So
Yeah.
the firmament naturally is the first time you see it is in Genesis 1
Yes.
during the story of creation. So it's depicting, this concept. And I feel that season 1, starting out with the firmament, is great because, like I said, all the other topics within the subject falls into place. And then in the future, in the upcoming seasons, I will be talking about other things other than biblical cosmology that I also feel are important.
Yes. Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the National Consensus Project, was what NCP stands for. I think it's good to get the consensus on, they just announced that the moon, apparently based on 2-decade-old research, is apparently within the Earth's atmosphere, which is
Yeah.
interesting to me, to say the least. I did a poll on my wife's Facebook one day, uh, about, hey, is the moon in the Earth's atmosphere or is it in space? 95% of the people selected B, it's in space. So
Yeah.
a lot of people still have that concept in their mind, but goes to
Sure.
show you, right?
So yeah, this will be interesting to follow your channel because you'll have some different, topics, different
Mhm.
scriptural focuses, and like you said, other ideas that are related to that you're going to be talking with. I think it's great too that you're speaking with a lot of different religious leaders. It's not just, well, I'm Baptist or whatever, so I called 50 Baptist pastors. You're really staying true to what your stated goal is. I mean, the namesake of your channel, and I think it educates people. What do most pastors believe, or at least a snapshot. And I know you're calling in different states, so it's not even just like, okay, let's see what folks in South Carolina believe, but you're branching out into other states. And I'm excited to see new videos. I got the notifications bell selected, and I'm excited to see what direction your channel goes. And really, I think it's also an opportunity for ministry, perhaps. So it's more than just, hey, I started a channel and have a project, but I think there's a spiritual component there. And I'm excited to see what does the Father do with your channel and with you as a person, because as I said, I was really impressed with your maturity and your spiritual maturity and your approach with people. I could see your approach goes a long way. And another approach, I mean, maybe, we need a channel someday where somebody's just like sticking it to them and being like, hey, well, what about this and what about that? But I think where you're at right now is real important, because the topic of what do pastors believe and teach is so huge right now. And as you know, I was fired from my work with the church, but folks like Robbie Davidson and others have been literally kicked out of churches. Robbie Davidson of Celebrate Truth, his family was kicked out of not one, but 2 churches. And he's okay right now at his current church. But many people, even who don't have a YouTube channel, or they're not known at all, they're just, folks with this belief. Many people on social media have shared a similar experience. And so I think it's encouraging for these folks to get some ideas on maybe how to approach their minister, right? Because they may go to your channel, watch a bunch of videos and say, I really I really like Nathaniel's approach, and he's given me some ideas on how I could have some respectful dialogue with my minister. And I think the first step is to find out, hey, what do you believe the Bible teaches about this? And specifically, you've dialed them into Genesis 1, which is, in my opinion, the perfect place to start because it is the foundation. And that's what I've tried to do. So, yeah, I thank you for the way that you've proceeded with this. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the different, seasons that you have. So yeah, so tell us a little bit, anything else about the channel, about the project that you want folks to know about.
Yeah. I definitely want to stress that the thought behind this, I put it in every description. The thought behind these calls is not to embarrass, harass, or mock the pastors. I definitely want everybody to understand that there are several pastors they actually do not know. They've never thought about it. They've never been asked these questions before. Um, um, until I call them and ask them, so they'll naturally look into it. So I want to stress that it's not to embarrass the Christian community and the
Yeah.
people that lead us in faith, because hey, you could be a fantastic pastor and you speak about Jesus and it's amazing, but like you said, Genesis is the foundation of the rest of the Bible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's written by Moses, and I put in the about description of my channel, hey, Jesus grew up to a man reading the book of Moses, and he says, if you can't believe the words of Moses, how can you believe the words I say? Because he wrote of me. And
Yes.
paraphrasing there, but that's
Yes. Yes.
essentially the philosophy behind it. So
Yeah, and I think that obviously you've planted some seed, most likely with some of these men, and I'll be the first to raise my hand and say I was right wherever these guys were. I mean, less than 3 years ago, that was me. I considered myself, a faithful minister of the word and trying to encourage and minister to people, and I know that I was, doing a lot of good and encouraging and equipping, but I had no idea. You don't know what you don't know, and until you have these types of truths revealed and you investigate it for yourself and you prayerfully wrestle with it and you dialogue with others and you do your research, um you know I you could have easily been calling me. You could have been calling this minister in the Toledo area, and I could have been the guy saying, well, blah, blah, because I'll be honest with you, years ago, I thought the firmament was the ground. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it. I was like, oh, yeah, firm, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, when I started looking into that, I'm like, wait a second, separating the waters above from the waters below. And you see that the dry land is a totally another deal. And so, yeah, I agree with you that the firmament is a pivotal component because it speaks to the enclosed cosmology, and the scriptures are very specific about the sun, moon, and stars being placed in the firmament, as Rob Skiba would stress. So I'm very excited, man, about your channel. I've been trying to promote it on Facebook, and I see that you may already be over 100. Right before we got into this hangout, you were at 98 subscribers, which I know when you hit your first 100, it's really cool. And you start to see, man, but your channel has tripled the number of subs in the last 48 hours. So I'm
that's right.
excited for you. And I know that people will continue to share. And I'm getting really the same basic reaction across the board. People are saying, man, thank you for sharing this. This is a great idea. It's a wonderful project. I like Nathaniel's approach. And I thought it was funny because I know in episode 5, you kind of were in a little bit of character there. You had your, more of a southern drawl, kind of like, hey, hey, pastor, what's this about the firmament? And I was busting up. Now I only had one person comment about that in one of my Facebook threads. They're like, well, I like his approach and blah blah blah. I'm not sure what to think about. And they called this been coined the Bubba Gump voice.
Whoa.
But But I told him, I said, hey, I said, I loved it. And I said, you got to have some fun with it. But even when you used, the thicker Southern drawl there, you were still very respectful. And I just appreciate, again, your approach. I can't say enough about it. I think it's going to also be an example for others. And hopefully, if somebody decides to, or maybe down the road, you switch gears and you say, you know what? Okay, I've been doing this, a year. I'm going to engage. Now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to engage a little more directly and challenge some thoughts, but still in a respectful way. I think your example hopefully will rub off on anybody who decides, "Man, I'm going to stick it to these guys." They start making phone calls, because you could even be very direct and upfront with somebody. You could be, bold without being a jerk. And that's what a lot of people need to learn, in this day and age. Boldness is not being a jerk, right?
That's right.
And like you said, it's not necessarily about just trying to be right, but you're trying to engage people in the word, which is the truth. And so that's another thing I really appreciate. So you've shared a little bit about your channel and what it stands for and the project that you're doing and your future plans. I hope that everybody watching this video will subscribe to Nathaniel's channel, NCP. I will leave a link in the description so you can go directly to that, because I know it's kind of hard to find in the search because of YouTube. They make everything difficult. But some of you are watching this Friday night as a premiere. And so some of you will have the benefit of being in the live chat, which is really great. And I know Nathaniel said, yeah, I'll be there, man. I'll be in the chat. And there'll be many, many people that will watch this after the fact. So wherever you fall on that continuum, please support Nathaniel's work and pray for him. Pray for the future of his channel and ministry opportunities. Make sure you subscribe and also click the notifications bell, because Nathaniel, you generally put out another video each week on Friday. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I put in the discussion board, hey, if I miss a Friday, it is due to my job. And I stress, hey, I try to have a couple of episodes already pre-recorded and ready to go, so I can just upload them on the fly. So
you got some in the hopper, right? You're planning ahead, and flexibility is the name of the game. Like my live streams, I typically do a Thursday night live stream at 10 p.m. Eastern on my channel, but there are a few weeks here and there where I'm just too tired, or I need to spend more time with my family, or I'm out of town and I can't get good Wi-Fi. But as much as I don't really like Walmart, I can tell you that most Walmarts do have a tower on their property. So I did a radio show with Robbie Davidson of Celebrate Truth, 3 weeks or so ago. And I was traveling in Wisconsin visiting my family. It was my grandmother's 90th. And so it was kind of a mini reunion. And I had to do this 2-hour live show with Robbie. And so I drove to the Walmart, and sure enough, I had the 4 bars there because they had a big tower right behind their building. But anyway, so support what Nathaniel is doing. And Nathaniel, once you tell me, I know you know this. What does the name Nathaniel mean? What's the significance of that?
Nathaniel in Hebrew actually means gift of God, and it's something that I've held to heart. If any of you ever want to reach out to me via email, that's actually my email address, giftofgodswill at gmail.com.
Awesome.
All lowercase there. But
yeah, so giftofgodswill at gmail.com. That's the email. That's the easiest way for folks to get a hold of you.
No, I'm fairly active on Twitter. Now I started a Twitter account, and if you guys ever want to reach out to me on Twitter, it's fun, right? I've got maybe 23 followers, and
nice.
That's another way to reach out to me.
So tell us about your Twitter. How can they find you on Twitter?
If you type in NCP and you don't see anything, I think you can just type in at Nathani, Nathani, and then there's several numbers after that. So it's Nathani 134111095, and you can just send me a message or hit follow, however you want to do it.
Awesome. And I did check that link that you sent me to Twitter, and so it's the same icon or NCP on YouTube as you have on Twitter, correct?
That's correct.
So that will clue people in, which NCP or which Nathaniel am I dealing with here? They'll be able to see that icon. It'll make it very simple. So if you are on Twitter, I would encourage you to, follow Nathaniel's channel on Twitter, help that to grow. And, again, subscribe to the channel, reach out to him, via email as well. And I'll put his email in the link of the description here as well. And I'm hoping that other channels will watch this video. They'll hear your testimony of faith and also of coming to the true biblical cosmology. They'll learn about you as a person, your character, your maturity, your desire, what you're hoping to do with this. And they'll learn about your channel, and hopefully others will interview you and help to share about your testimony, spread the word about your channel. I'd just be tickled to death if, you passed me up here in a couple months, had more subs than me. That would be great. I'm just under 2,000, and that blows me away. I mean, I started my first channel. It was Discerning Dad 73. And I chose Discerning Dad because I was trying to be discerning. And I'm a dad of 4. And at the time that I started that channel, basically all my kids were teenagers, or the oldest was just barely a young adult. And they were encouraging me to do some videos because I had some teaching about the Nephilim and different things. And so they're like, Dad, you got to start a YouTube channel. I'm like, man, I'm old. I'm not savvy. Like I can't start no YouTube channel. And they bugged me. And so I started Discerning Dad 73, which actually is still up. It's my backup channel. And if you want to check out some videos I did on angels and Nephilim and demons and all kinds of cool stuff, you can go there. But, subbing people's channels, encouraging them, supporting them. And I had that channel for 6 months. I had 17 subscribers for 6 months, Nathaniel. So I was like, man, I don't know if this is doing any good. And then as soon as my situation happened and I was interviewed by several people, Chad Taylor and Robbie Davidson and others, all of a sudden my stuff was blowing up. And then I decided to create this new channel, Fired for Truth, because it really focused on 2 things, what happened to me, but also kind of a double meaning. Not only was I fired because I was seeking truth, but I'm fired up for the truth, so that's why I use that fire icon.
Amen.
So it's kind of a double meaning. I hope people realize that I'm not just talking about, oh, I got fired, but there's a lot more to the story, because it's also a story of what God has done in my life and ministry since then, and wanting to give him the glory for that. So yeah, it's exciting, man, that I'm sure the video game channel that you had was really fun and cool. And a lot of
I
folks
don't recommend it.
right?
I don't recommend checking out that channel.
Okay. All right. Well, then check out NCP. And again, I'll put all the links and contact information for Nathaniel in the description. I also want to say that Nathaniel, will be our special guest on Celebrate Truth Radio. That is on Revolution Radio. The website for that is freedomslips.com. It's really Freedom's Lips, but Freedom's Lips, Freedom Slips, it looks the same. freedomslips.com. You can go to Studio A, because they have 2 studios, A and B. But we are in Studio A on freedomslips.com every Saturday. It is 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern in Studio A, and it goes for 2 hours. And most of the time, we have a special guest every week. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just Robbie and I talking about current events and different things that are going on in our ministry. But Nathaniel is going to be our guest this Saturday. So check into that. And typically, after those are recorded, it takes a few days for the audio recordings to show up on freedomslips.com in the archives. And I think for about $5 a month, you can support Revolution Radio. It's the largest listener supported station of its kind. And for $5 a month, that gives you access to all of the archive shows, not just Celebrate Truth, but there's something like, I think there's about 90 different hosts on that program. It's 24 hours, and they run those 2 stations, the 2 studios, all the time. So that way you don't have to wait for whenever Robbie puts out the audio recording of the radio show on YouTube, We still have several folks that we've interviewed that we want to get out there and put that in as a premiere. So I know that down the road, the recording that we will do, the interview with Nathaniel this Saturday from Celebrate Truth Radio, will probably also be on YouTube. So you can look for that. And we always advertise that to let folks know. So I'm excited, Nathaniel, about your channel. I'm so grateful that you spoke with me, that you reached out to me, that we've had this time to hang out on Testify for Truth and share your journey and share about your project and what you're doing. I'm excited to have you on the show Saturday. So anything else you want to share with the folks? And then again, share your contact information one more time before we wrap up.
Definitely, Nate. Definitely. I appreciate all the support from you. I appreciate the invitation to Celebrate Truth over at Revolution Radio. I'm excited thoroughly. I never thought that, I would get this recognition as quickly as I did. So I appreciate it, and all the support that I've gotten from my new subscribers in the comments and things like that. It really means a lot. It warms my heart. So yeah, I'm definitely excited, and I look forward to creating more content in the future and finishing up season 1. I'm gonna call several other pastors and ministers to finish up season 1, and I'm excited about where I'll take season 2. And again, my contact information. I'm on Twitter. You can search NCP or at Nathaniel 1341095. That's a mouthful, but you can check me out on Twitter. And then my email address again is giftofgodswill at gmail.com.
Awesome. And again, I'll put all of these links in the description so lazy folks like myself can just click on it and they don't have to worry about where's that guy. But yeah, man, I'm really excited for you. Let me know what I can do to encourage and support you. And definitely, I'm looking forward to the premiere of this video and the chat and the fact that you'll be able to participate in that because it's really cool. And one thing, just and I know you know this because you understand how the spiritual works, but there's always two sides to the coin. And although now you're getting more recognition and it's going to increase your channel and your ministry, and it's going to be a positive force for good and for truth. Also, be prepared, stay prayed up, because you know that Satan does not want this information out. He does not want you planting seeds in the minds of the pastors that you call. He does not want you to have opportunities to share your testimony of truth. And so I will be praying for you, and let me know what I can do to support you. We know that we don't live in fear. We live in hope and trust, and we're not timid. We don't shrink back, but we do have to recognize about the spiritual forces in high or heavenly places, and they do try to come against us when we're doing the will of the Father. So I'm thankful for you in that you're willing to kind of stick your neck out there. And I appreciate your time today. And tell your wife, hey, thanks for letting us borrow some of your time these past few weeks. And I can imagine she must be a wonderful, wonderful person, and very supportive of you and what you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. She is a woman of faith as well, and that makes it easier. It definitely does. Around the house, and she's a wonderful woman, beautiful woman. We've actually been married for a year in the next couple of weeks, so we're going
Oh, wow.
on vacation. Yeah, I'm gonna take a week off of work. I'm excited, so it's gonna be
Awesome.
a ton of fun. Yep.
Cool. So you'll get some break from work, from the grind. You'll get some
Oh
time.
yeah.
You get some time with your spouse, which is wonderful. And in the meantime, folks, keep subbing to his channel. Keep sharing the word about what he's doing, and be in prayer for Nathaniel and his family. And so, man, I really appreciate you. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to end the broadcast here for now, but you and I will chat for a few afterwards. Thank you all for tuning in tonight to Testify for Truth on Fired for Truth YouTube channel. Thanks to everybody in the chat, all my awesome mods, and just friends and visitors. You guys have been of great support. Check the description links to connect with Nathaniel, to see his work and support him. And hope to bring another great opportunity for testimony in the near future. But until that time, take care and God bless. And thank you so much.